Wonderful.
Hello, Natalie. Hope you can hear us. If you can, just go ahead and say hello in the chat. That'll let us know you're there. Oh, you even went off, Mike. Hi. You can speak too. We allow that. Oh, we're going to get video and everything. Oh, maybe not.
Ooh.
Natalie, we're not hearing you. It looks like you're trying to speak, though. Did you hear anything, Bex?
I didn't hear anything. No.
Her little mic was doing a little thing like she's talking, but I didn't.
Yeah, I saw the microphone come off. And yeah, maybe if we're continuing not to hear you, Natalie, feel free to use that chat box. She keeps lighting up like she's speaking.
Yeah. So Natalie, it's showing that you're trying to speak, but it's not letting you through. So you may want to log out and log back in. Sometimes it just doesn't connect you, because we'd love to hear you. And we'll be here eating ice cream.
Yes.
I hope you brought yours, Natalie. So I went with 2 flavors.
Did you now? All right, tell us the flavors.
So I went with one that I learned of there that has blown my mind ever since I had it. It's caramel ice cream with Oreos.
Okay.
I wouldn't have ever guessed it, but the person behind the counter suggested it. I was like, okay, I'll try it. I was like, whoa. Yeah, and it's a bad one. Like, I can eat too much of it. The other one is a new one, new to me anyhow. It's called Bear Grub.
Oh.
You know, Colorado, we like to be out bears and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's chocolate ice cream with brownies, pecans, and caramel.
All right. Yeah. Lots of chunks.
It's
Chunks
light.
and surprises. Yeah.
It's a health food.
Right. It's got all the
For the bears.
Right.
And look at this.
Oh, that's
She did a
nice.
half and half pint
Oh,
vertically.
wow. Huh.
And I said, yeah, can you put this on the top and then on the bottom? She goes, oh, I can do them side by side. I'm like, you can?
Wow.
Yeah, pretty professional scooper.
That's talent.
Mhm.
Yeah. We've got Carol in the room. Welcome, Carol.
Hello, Carol.
Welcome
Grab a
to.
spoon. I hope you brought a tasty treat. I'm enjoying some of mine.
Yes, I have some too. So I
Oh, what'd you
have.
get, Bex?
Well, I went ahead and dished it out into a bowl, but I have a gelato that is a like a Java chocolate chip. So I strayed from my normal. I'm really diehard chocolate peanut butter in whatever configuration. In fact, I like to find different configurations of chocolate peanut butter combo. But I went with my second favorite, which is my childhood favorite, which is like more like a coffee flavored ice cream.
You were having coffee ice cream as a child. I didn't even know of coffee ice cream till I was in.
Oh man, so I grew up in Rhode Island, and one of the staples of Rhode Island is coffee milk. It's like a state staple. I don't even know. There's some
staple. There's a state bird, there's a state drink, and it's coffee milk.
They have it in all the elementary, like
Really?
all the public schools. Yeah. So it was a big deal. And so, of course, the local creameries made coffee ice cream, and that was a big deal. So yes, I was hooked on coffee ice cream when I was a kiddo.
That's hilarious. I never heard of that. Of course, you know, Rhode Island being small, if it's just in Rhode Island, doesn't get a lot of visibility. So, wow.
Oh, yeah.
So ladies, Carol, Natalie, anybody else out there, if you have an ice cream that you brought, please put it in the chat. Let us know what you have. You know, because that is part of the ice cream chats. It was brought to us by a chat over ice cream. So we just thought we'd continue it on a bigger platform to anyone that wants to chime in from around the world. And thank you for being here. So where do you want to start, Bex?
Well, I think it would be appropriate to just kind of talk about how we got here. I know that we mentioned it in our emails, but yeah. I do think that, you know, there is a tie that we have drawn between ice cream and love, and it might be appropriate to kind of unpack that a little bit.
Okay. Do you want to start or do you want me to?
Sure. Wow. I'll kick it off.
Okay.
So we met several years ago. I can't remember how it happened, but I know that I've interviewed you for things that I've produced, and you've interviewed me for things that I've produced. And we quickly learned that we live several miles away from each other
Yep.
and that we love ice cream.
Yep.
And so we started meeting up in person just to share some ice cream and catch up and talk about business and love and supporting our clients and, bringing more love to the world.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then I don't know, it had been a minute, obviously, with the pandemic and lockdowns and things like that. And so we got together again this summer and enjoyed some ice cream. And the conversation turned to basically how we've spent the last year and a half and how we've taken care of ourselves and how we have I don't know, gotten through without going crazy or what do you have to add to that, Ken? I'd love to hear your side
Yeah,
of
no, I
things.
mean, that's pretty much what happened is we got together for some ice cream, as is our norm. And sure enough, we started talking about basically self-care, self-love, all those kind of things. And I remember we were sitting there going, this would be cool to have a bigger conversation about this.
Mhm.
And then we just kind of said, let's have an ice cream thing. And we just started playing with it. And this is where we got to, is ice cream chats. So, hi, Tova. Good to see you here.
Welcome.
And Luann, I see Luann showed up. Welcome.
Welcome.
So again, feel free to eat your ice cream at any time. Hopefully you brought some. We did. We were just talking about our favorite flavors of the day. But I think the other thing was, I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, for me anyhow, having ice cream is kind of like self-love, because it's a treat. It's not a big part of my diet, but when it is, it's something that I enjoy. It's like a celebration. It's obviously I got to feel like I deserve it. All those kind of things. And it's funny because I had a friend of mine who years ago, that was her go-to. Like if something had happened with business or with life, whatever it was, she'd be like, oh, time to celebrate, and she'd go to an ice cream place. And I was like, oh, she goes, yeah, it's just my default. It always feels like a celebration, no matter what. And I was like, what an interesting, like, it was just a guaranteed, even if it was just getting some out of the fridge, it was like, oh, that's how I'm celebrating whatever's going on and loving myself for whatever's going on. And so that's really, at least in my brain, how we kind of matriculated in that direction. And again, self-love just happened to be the topic of our conversation that day. It wasn't the limitations of what we'd love to talk about. But it's an interesting concept, or not concept, it's an interesting practice, right, currently in the world. Because some of the things that we may have thought we did before may not be available to us, or, maybe we've just gone, oh, I've got more time on my hands. I'm aware of, am I or am I not giving myself that love that I really need? Because a lot of times we've just been busy and distracted.
Right.
And that keeps us from noticing.
Right. Yeah. Let's see. I'm just going to switch this over here. Yeah, that's good. Well, it's interesting as you were talking, Ken. The thing that was coming up for me, I was remembering back to one of the first times that we met up for ice cream, and I didn't treat myself to ice cream on a regular basis back in those days. And I mean, and that's just because of a whole host of historic body conversations and fear of calories and all this other silly, I mean, I'm going to call it silliness now, because I feel like I've gotten through that and recognize like how harmful that deprivation can be, and like how not allowing myself ice cream was harming myself and harming the relationship that I have with myself, because it was reinforcing sort of a self-punitive relationship that doesn't really serve me, and it certainly doesn't serve the relationships that I have beyond myself.
Yeah, and just to be clear for everyone who's there, ice cream is not the only mechanism for self-love. We sound like it is. It just happens to be one we enjoy. But it is one of those things of, we make up these stories around, oh no, I can't do that. Oh, that's too much. And actually, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine recently, and she asked a really great question. And I love the way she said it. She said, when does self-love become selfish?
Mhm.
And so we're exploring that in a particular situation with her. And it was an interesting conversation because she's like, you know, like I want to do something for me that feels like self-love, but you know, like spend the night at home, not doing anything, and somebody wants to go get together. And I'm like, am I being selfish because I'm not going when I could go? I actually don't have anything going on. I don't technically have a plan, meaning I'm not going anywhere, but my plan is to not do anything.
That's still a plan.
Yeah, it's still a plan, but the thing is, but is that being selfish? Because I could go.
Mhm.
I don't have any actual reason not to. And what we started talking about was, because her comment was, this person who had contacted her, she goes, everything they said, we've done it before, I've enjoyed it before, but it didn't feel like it would be fun. Like this time, for whatever reason, because hanging out at home seemed like more fun. But then she felt guilty because there wasn't a thing, right? There was an activity. And she's like, I know I won't be doing nothing, but it's
Mhm.
not like I have to do this tonight and that's why I can't go.
Right.
But it's really about, well, does it energize you?
Mhm.
Right? That's what self-love does. Self-love fulfills us, it nurtures us. And
Mhm.
so the fact that she recognized that's not going to, like, nothing about what they presented sounds good. Not because of them, not because of anything else, just right now in this moment, that doesn't sound like a good thing.
Right.
Now, here's where the real question mark came in. Then somebody else contacted her, presented something to do the same night that she had said she was just going to hang out at home. And
Oh.
she was interested in that. And then she's like, well, am I being a bad friend or a bad whatever to the other person? And it's like, well, so in the moment when you talk to the first person, that seemed like the most self-loving thing was to hang out at home. Then something else showed up that wasn't even in your sphere of knowledge, you know, when you made that decision, and it actually, oh, that would actually be more fun than hanging out at home. It's still taking care of yourself, right? You didn't go do something else that you didn't want to do either. You went, oh, what would be even more fulfilling? What would be even more energizing? And it was interesting because she's like, yeah, but I still feel guilty because of all these ideas that if you can, you have to.
Right.
Right. But we can do a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of stuff
Absolutely.
that doesn't serve us.
Mhm.
Right? It doesn't honor us. It doesn't allow us to be our best. And that's really where we come back to with the self-love piece, is that commitment to doing what we need to do for us so that we can
Right.
be the best with whoever else, our kids, our family, our friends, our job, whatever it happens to be.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing that comes to mind is like who are you making this decision for? You know, in the first scenario where, you know, she's contemplating, do I take this friend up on the offer even though I kind of just want to stay at home? Is that being selfish? Well, who are you making the decision for? If you say yes, or you do, you know, is the motivation to avoid the discomfort of saying no, to avoid
Yes.
disappointing the friend, to avoid inconveniencing them. Maybe you have tickets together and then all of a sudden you just don't feel like going.
Mhm.
Gosh, a late cancel. Oh my goodness. How guilty does that feel?
How
Right?
flaky am
You know?
I?
Right? Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Those stories are real, and I think that that's really the conversation. There is how we manage those internal feelings, because the feelings of guilt and the feelings of like, oh, I'm a flaky friend, the stories that we make up, those are real feelings. They're not necessarily truth, but like that's really the, you know, the work there is, you know, being able to say no, being able to make decisions for our own well-being, and then being okay with the aftermath, like what pans out after that.
Yeah. And I think the other piece is, you know, where are you putting you in the priority list?
Mhm. Yeah.
Right? It's like, oh no, it's more important to do this with that person, even though it's not fun. And her comment, which was really a great observation, was it would have been obvious that I didn't want to be there. Like, it's not like they're not going to know that you don't seem like you really are excited to be here, or you're, you know, we notice, right? We know when somebody's like just going through the motions.
Mm.
How would that be a good thing? Nobody wins in that situation, right? They don't actually
Right.
get to be with their friend who's feeling good to be there. They can tell you're feeling like it's obligatory or something.
Mhm.
And it's like, because they've been with you when you like to be there. They know the difference, right? So it's like, oh, yeah, nobody's going to win in that. Like, actually, everybody loses if I'm not doing the self-care.
Right.
But the priority is the big thing, right? We go, well, these other things come in first. Well, no matter what it is in our life, whether it's our career or how we take care of our family or whatever it is, can you do it better from an empty tank or a full tank? Because that's what self-love does, right? It nourishes us, it fills us up, it energizes us. And that's really what we're looking at is, wait a minute, I want to be the best mom, client, student, whatever it is, then I got to do what I got to do for me so that I can be that.
Mhm.
And that's really where, I mean, culturally, we've been told the exact opposite, right? It's totally selfish, it's self-centered, you're a narcissist if you do stuff for yourself.
Right.
It's like, that doesn't make you a narcissist. That's not what a narcissist is. But we have these negative labels that nobody wants put on them.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll compromise ourselves to avoid the label. Like you said, avoid the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I'm curious from everybody out there. I see some more folks join us. Hello, Michelle. And who was the other one? I saw somebody else. Anyhow, what are your thoughts? What are your comments? Just put them in the chat and we can explore this further, because we want to, this is meant to be a conversation. This isn't meant to be, you know, Bex and I talking about self-love and ice cream. We certainly are going to do both those, and we have already. But we want your interaction. What's going on for you? What are experiences you've had where you were like struggling with it, maybe even struggling with prioritizing yourself in that role of putting yourself first? It's a very, very common struggle because of the fact that culturally there's so many negative connotations to that, especially for women, actually, more than for men.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So please type those in. Any comments, thoughts, feedback on what we've just said. You know, it's funny too, because when you think of priority, oftentimes people go, well, I don't have time.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Which again is a priority thing, because we have time for whatever we decide we have time for.
Right.
But it's an easy out because nobody argues with it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like, oh yeah, you're busy. And so it's like our back door, but nobody wins. It's like not beneficial.
Right. Right.
They know you're not getting to be your best. You're not getting to be your best. Who won? How did that benefit anybody? But again, it's interesting. I saw, sorry, Bex, I just want to.
No, go ahead.
So years ago, I saw a guy speak, and I can't remember his name. I wish I could. He's the gentleman, for those of you who remember the Pentagon Papers back in Vietnam era, when this guy that worked at the Pentagon stole these documents that proved that they were lying about the war. And I saw him speak, and he said he became public enemy #1. Like, they wanted to shut him down like nobody's business. And he was a colonel in the Marines. Like, he had spent his whole life serving his country. And he said, I wasn't scared of being arrested. I wasn't scared of being put in jail. I was scared of being called unpatriotic. Mm. He goes, names and labels are way more powerful than the actual incarceration. He's like, my whole life was serving my country. I felt like I was doing that now. And I literally, that's what I was most scared of, is that I would be known as this traitor. Mm. And he's like, that's what we don't understand, is how powerful these labels are, these stories are, that aren't true at all.
Right.
Nobody could come up with a reason. This man's been, you know, served his country for his entire lifetime. How are you going to turn him? Oh, well, no, he did this one thing. Yeah, he did it in the name of service to his country and to all his, you know, fellow Americans. And it's like, but the people that were in power that were going to be made, they were going to get a label, right? Mm-hmm. So they're like, no, we're going to put the label on you. And it was so fascinating, because I remember him saying this, and there was an audience of about 2,000 people, and the whole place gasped, like, oh my God, you're right. We're terrified of labels. Mm. You're selfish. Nobody has to back that up, but all of a sudden it's stuck on you. Mm-hmm. Right? And what do? The whole world's going to think I'm selfish. But it's,
I start giving, over giving.
Well, yeah, but what's the truth? The most generous thing you can do is be your best with somebody.
Right. That's
the real gift. So it's the opposite of selfish, but not the way it's been presented. And so we get trapped. So we've got a couple comments here, but I don't know if it has, oh, there it is. This is from Carol. Hi, Carol. Mm. In the past, I've done everything and sacrificed myself. That did not serve me at all. I'm learning how to set some boundaries now. Awesome.
That's really big.
Fantastic. And that's another piece, right? Oh, but I'm being of service. But again, how
Yeah,
well can you be of service if your tank's empty?
right.
And
Absolutely.
we're really good at soldiering on an empty tank.
Yeah, especially doers and givers and
Feeders and mhm.
big-hearted people.
Yeah. And so
Um,
you're like, but I want to be a contributor. I want to be that person that serves.
yeah,
There's nothing
yeah,
wrong with that. But how can you serve best?
right.
Right. And Carol, your comment's perfect. You're like, that didn't serve me.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
interesting. I was speaking with a woman yesterday and we were talking about boundaries, and that's a learning curve. I mean, it's a learning curve for all of us, I think, but you know, and she has a son who's become an adult and they've been so close, and she mentioned that she's gonna start dating again, and he had like some eye roll reaction and he was like, well, don't tell me about it. And I said, you know what? This is awesome. This is a great opportunity to honor his request and keep this for yourself, because she, takes in his perspective and his opinion and takes it very personally and almost overrides her own instinct in favor of her son's. And so we're talking about creating this boundary, at least in the early phases of getting to know somebody, that maybe her son just isn't a part of that conversation until she knows how she feels about somebody.
Mm.
We were talking about boundaries not being a punitive thing, and that it's not meant to punish her son.
Yeah.
It's not meant to keep people out, but to keep our best self intact and to keep like like you're talking about, Ken, like the boundary is there so that we can live into our best self.
Yeah. And Carol, I just want to commend you for recognizing I need to work on my boundaries, because
Yeah.
most of us don't realize we're not doing that. And it's because we mislabel what a boundary is. So I'll just ask everybody on here, when you think of the word boundary, what's the image that comes to mind? And just type it in the chat. What's the image? Because everybody does. Like if you say boundary, we have this mental image of what that means, how that, what that experience is. Oh, I put up a boundary.
Mm-hmm.
And safety, thank you, Michelle. But that's the feeling. What's the image?
Right.
What's the image that makes you feel safe? So the reason I'm asking this is oftentimes, again, boundaries get a bad rap because we're not actually calling the things that are boundaries. We're calling something else boundaries. And this is where it gets really, really great. So one of the things that I've seen over and over again, and I've been doing this for 23 years now, is heard, not understood. Oh, heard and understood. I read that wrong, Tova. See, you'd think I could read, but it's the ice cream. My head's crazy. So again, I want to know what the image is. So you guys are giving me the experience, the feeling.
Right, the feelings.
What's the visual image? And I'll just throw it out there so you guys can get an idea of what I'm talking about. Almost everybody I've ever asked, when they gave me an image, what they said was, it's a wall or a barrier or a fence, or that's what a boundary is. Like, that's the line. You can't go across that, right? We even say that, oh, they cross my boundaries.
Right.
That's not a boundary, that's a defense. And that's why we don't like them. Because what happens when we put up a defense? You get a defensive response. And so we don't like that because it causes separation when what we really want is connection.
Right.
So we have to understand what is actually a boundary. A boundary is actually an invitation for somebody to be closer.
Mm.
Take that in for a second. It's the exact opposite of what we've been told because we've been misrepresenting it.
Right.
Boundaries are proactive, they're not reactive.
Mm-hmm.
So Carol, Bex, you were talking about that with the client. Literally her son saying, don't tell me about it. He was setting his boundary. Here's what I need to be my best if you're going to start dating. I don't want to know. It's not important to me. Or I just don't want to know yet. I don't know what their family situation is and, his dad and so on. But he could be like, no, I don't need to know. And it could be like you said, I don't want to know about people until they're somebody that's significant. But he was declaring, what's my boundary? He wasn't waiting till she'd done it, then going, shut up, mom, I don't want to hear this. That's a defense.
Yeah.
He was being proactive. And then she can go, oh, do I want to honor that or not? Right? Which is what boundaries really are. Boundaries are agreements.
Right.
Oh, you don't want to know? Great, I won't tell you.
Great. Mm-hmm.
And in that case, she may need more definition, right? Like, well, when would be the time you'd want to know?
Right.
And he may not know if it's the first time his mom has ever dated again. So he doesn't ever, my mom's dating. I never even thought of my mom dating.
Right.
I have no idea when or if I ever went about that.
I love that, like from that example, like it's like boundaries can almost sound like anything. Like his comment was, just almost like this eye roll throwaway comment in their conversation, but yet it was very clearly stating his feelings and what he needed in that situation.
Mhm.
So it's like, I think it takes a lot of like tuning our own ears and hearts to be able to receive others' boundaries and really hear them, as well as like communicate our own, like understand what we're needing to be our best selves,
Mhm.
what we need to communicate so that we're acting in the most loving way towards ourselves.
Mhm. Yeah. And Michelle, I saw your follow-up comment here is when someone keeps their word and shows up in present, I'm assuming you mean present time and stays present with you. Is that accurate? So here's the thing I want to say about that, because I'm curious when you say that, because we were talking about your boundaries and now you're talking about somebody else's expression.
Mm.
So is that what it's like when they honor your boundaries? Is that what you're representing there? Because again, this is the thing, boundaries seem like a no-brainer, like they should be really obvious and understood, but we really don't understand them. And it's why we are afraid of them. Because one of the things that it does is if we believe it's going to actually push people apart, well, that's not what we want. So then we go, well, then I won't do that because I don't want to sever the connection. I want to have a closer connection. So maybe this version of the connection is okay, as opposed to losing it altogether. And so then what happens is we hold on, we don't say anything, don't say anything, don't say anything. Eventually we do. Oh, I gave my boundary. It's like, well, just that tone of voice tells me it wasn't a boundary.
Right.
It's like
Yeah.
you got to the end of your rope and you finally declared something you would have done a long time ago, but you were afraid to. So again, this is the thing. I always use the example of like, if you think about like the boundaries between states, right? Like Nevada and California. There's a boundary. It's an agreement. Oh, this is where Nevada ends. This is where California starts. You take care of the roads on this side. We take care of the roads on that side, basic stuff, but it's an agreement that they have. Now, if California started whatever they were doing into Nevada, they may have a defensive response, like build a fence, a wall, put the police there, whatever. But that's the difference, is boundaries are actually agreements, like we were talking about with Bex and her client and her son, is he was saying, here's what I need. And she can either go, oh, I'm in agreement with that.
Mm-hmm.
Or she can just go, why do you need that? I want to talk to you about all this. You're my only person to talk to. And then he's like, hello, I feel dishonored. I feel disrespected. Yeah. Now, the thing is, if we asked him, he probably wouldn't going to go, well, yes, I was giving her my boundary, because we don't think of it in that kind of format, right? But this is what boundaries are about, is making sure we're setting that edge and letting them know, here's what I need to be my best.
Yeah.
And I'm asking you to partner with me. I'm inviting you to partner with me in that, as opposed to going, well, I'm not going to say anything for months and months and months. And then one day I'll be like, I hate when you do that. And they're like, what? I've been doing this since we met.
Right. Right.
They had no idea because you didn't set a boundary. So I just want to make sure, and if that's not clear, please ask, because it's one of the areas that gets us in trouble, is we aren't actually saying, we're not using the right words, right? Mm-hmm. Because the boundary is proactive, it's not reactive. So if you're reacting to somebody right there, you're not setting a boundary.
Right. There is a point at which a need or a feeling could have been communicated in it prior to, in advance. And that's not like, shaming our the way that we show up or behavior, but our hindsight reflection is an opportunity to recognize how we can do things differently or make different choices in the future. Yeah. And I, yeah, I mean, I think that's really important to recognize. I mean, the way that I like to untangle things for myself and my relationship and with my clients is we look at those explosions, we look at those reactive moments, and we say, great, this is a gold mine of information. Let's go digging, but we have to kind of take off the hats of judgment and self-criticism to do that, and look at, okay, what were the facts? What were the words that were said? And then, what were the assumptions that were made, or how did you hear that beyond the words that were precisely said?
Yep.
So, like on a really granular basis, really peel this apart to unearth
Mm-hmm.
how we were feeling in that need that drove that reaction, and how and how we, let's see, what we needed instead of what we were getting in that moment.
Yeah.
And that's, and that is a process that, I don't know, for me personally in my own life has taken me, I don't know, a decade to, I wouldn't even call it mastery, but to practice and build the skill, so that in the moment, like my turnaround time of communicating, like, oh, hey, I reacted this way because what I was really feeling was this, and I can do that in a matter of like, 10 or 20 minutes instead of 2 or 3 days. And I just want to drive home the importance of these conversations around our boundaries, and how even if we don't have a good handle on it, the reactive responses are great ways to help us understand what the boundaries are, because they're, it's a plethora of information from our own experience.
Yeah. And there's so much of what you just said, Bex. It's like an encyclopedia. But I think what we've got to understand is boundaries are actually a part of self-care. They're self-love. Right. Honoring ourselves enough to say, this is what I need. So I wanted to speak to something Carol posted here, which is really a great comment. So she wrote, I met a fellow who was very nice, and we have chatted quite a bit, or quite a lot, until we were able to meet. He's very smart and wants to share everything. I told him I can only absorb a little at a time and want to go slow. He agrees and then gets carried away. I'm thinking of setting a timer when we talk. Your suggestion. I think he's lonely since his wife passed away. So I got something you want to propose to him, right? And say, hey, I know my capacity to be able to take in stuff it's mine, right? It's not yours. You're not going to know when I'm full. So to help us with that, I'm going to do that just as a reminder, so that I can go, can I keep going, or am I just like zoning out right now? Because I don't want to not be present with us. And when I get full, I go off into la la land. And I don't, you turn into Charlie Brown's teacher, and I don't even hear you. And what is that it provides for you, right? Because this is one of the missing pieces in all communication, is we think it's obvious. So you're getting full, you're getting too much, you can't take in that much, he's chattering away. You enjoy his company, you enjoy the conversations or what have you, but you get full, can't take in anymore. You know that, and it seems glaringly obvious to you because you're having that visceral experience. He doesn't. And the most it can ever be for him is intellectual, because he's not going to have a body experience of it. He's going to go, oh, okay, you're full. I'm not sure what that means, but okay. So the next time, he's not going to be able to know when you're full. He doesn't get to see your gauge of fullness, right? So that's where you could play with this and just kind of make it a fun game, right? Be like, hey, you know what? I think I'm going to set a timer. And then they hear it go off, and it's like, oh, does that mean you're full? Oh, well, I don't know. Let me see. No, I think we can talk a little more, or whatever it is. So again, this is the exploration part, right? We don't really know exactly what we need at any moment until we try it. We know a direction. Oh, I need to make these a certain length of time. Okay. Then there might be a day where you're like, oh, I want to keep talking. I don't want to make this a static. We only talk for 37 minutes and that's it. No matter what.
Yeah.
Because what happens if it's the day that you want to talk? Well, no, then we go longer. Right? So again, it's about in the moment, what's going to support you in being your best. And having that space that you can call time out and say, hey, I'm really done. This has been fun, but I got nothing left in the tank. I can't hear anything else right now. And this is where we're partnering. We're finding out, because he won't there's no way he can understand that for you. And obviously you wouldn't know it for him. And the other thing I would invite you to do is your comment about, I think he's, lonely because his wife passed away. We love to make up stories of why they're doing this. You can always ask him, hey, have you always been really chatty? Because you really love to talk, and I think it's great, but I'm just curious. I'm trying to get to know you. Oh, no, you'll find out. Then you don't have to assume it's this or that. maybe he's always like that. And it's got, because part of what we're doing when we're doing that is going, this won't last forever. It's just right now because it's the recent thing for him. That's the way that you're actually trying to make it okay not to set your boundary. It'll
Right.
solve itself. Nope, we don't know that for sure. That's a story we're making up. That's why the boundary piece is so fun. So if it feels good to you, bring it up. Say, oh, I'm going to set a timer. Let's have fun with this. And make it a little joke. Bex, comment?
Yeah, I would even say that, Carol, your own experience in that moment. I'm coming from a partnership where I have a very chatty husband. I called this man in. My father's very quiet. So when I was calling in my partner, I was like, I want a man who can tell a story and hold a conversation. And I got a very chatty man, and I love him to death. And at the same time, I also have a very similar experience where there are times when I just need quiet, or I'm at capacity, and I have to set that boundary too. And I think that for me, it's a huge practice of self-love for me to even be aware of that moment internally when I'm at capacity, when I recognize, like, he's telling me a story, he's giving me a lot of detail. I do the same thing, but I might be getting lost in the details, or maybe I'm craving something different. And for me, it's self-love, and it's through my own mindfulness practices that I can feel that sensation kind of bubbling up, that kind of wall hitting capacity. Sometimes it feels like I'm craving touch, like I want to be in my body. I want, so I'll, and I'll shift into like touching his hand or his arm, or putting my arm around him, kissing his neck and his cheek, and, and then communicating my boundary or my need in that moment of like, I've had a really full day. My brain is just at capacity. I would love to be here with you and hold you or feel you in my, and then just shift into what I need in that moment, what that thing bubbling up inside of me is. And I don't think it's a far leap from feeling the discomfort or the tension of, okay, he's really chatty. I'm getting lost. I'm not sure, there's that tension where there's maybe like not understanding of what we need, or what we want the situation to be. It's not a far leap, to be able to kind of reflect in that moment and feel what's happening inside. And that for me is a huge expression of self-love, that connection to our own experience and what is rising up in the moment, what we need. And because that's the precursor of the communication piece. That's the precursor of what we're expressing, the boundary that we're communicating. Excuse me.
Yeah,
My ice cream is melted.
I know. I thought about this. I was like, it's an hour, and I don't think ice cream stays that good. I've never taken an hour to eat ice cream. It doesn't take me that long. But we're gonna make it work. So Carol, I see you there. Hi, Carol. Did you have any comments or thoughts you wanted to feedback on this?
No, I appreciate your input. I think that's great. When I start to talk to him again, because he keeps saying, oh, well, we'll cut it short. And then he goes from one story to the next story. And it's like, it happens more than once. And sometimes, and then he'll ask me questions and I can talk a little bit, but then he gets on his tangents again. And I think he does this all the time, though. I kind of get that impression from what his daughter tells him. Dad, you shouldn't talk that long.
Yeah, so it's just part of who he is. That's how he talk. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's a great thing, right? So you just made a great comment. You said, he says, we'll keep this short. And then he's like, blah. Well, short's a relative term.
Exactly.
Right? It's like, what's short to him? If this guy normally talks for hours and hours, less than 12 hours is short, and you're like, no, I was talking 20 minutes. That's what short meant to me. So again, this is where we're clarifying, and you just have, well, what's short to you?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Oh, it's 20 minutes. Oh, okay, cool. Then what do? We prioritize what we want to make sure we communicate in that time. But if it feels open-ended and you feel like you're getting steamrolled, and it's like, well, I don't want to be rude. I don't want to be rude. What are we doing? Saying their thing is more important than mine. And we just go, hey, Charlie, or whatever your name is, hang on. I gotta go, like we said, short, or whatever it is, right? And this is where we start getting clear about that. Again, you're doing it from that place of being your best with them, because trust me, we think we're fooling people. We're not. People can tell when we're like, nope, they're looking for something to do because they're tired of hearing your voice and they can't even see you and they know that's going on. We've all heard it on the other side, right?
Mhm.
So it's more respectful to let them know and then go, And again, it's a great place to practice the boundaries,
Mhm.
Okay.
right? It's like, hey, as soon as I notice this is starting to drain me, I always say it's like you just notice that your bucket sprung a leak.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well, I'm not going to sit there and go, I'll let that go for a while. We instantly go, oh, I better fix that because otherwise my bucket will be empty. And we
Yeah,
know when that
I love
moment
that.
happens, right? When it's gone over that threshold. So that's where, I mean, I've literally had people I worked with, and we use that and we'll make that the joke, like, uh-oh, there's a hole in my bucket.
That's
And
perfect.
that's
I
the
love
kind
that.
of light way that they can interrupt the other person or stop that momentum and go, oh, what happened? This part just, oh, now we can figure out how do we adjust that, because nobody wants that bucket to keep draining, right? So find those kind of playful things for yourselves that are like, oh, it's kind of a joke, and it's not a bad thing. It's like you said, it may just be his personality. He's always been a talker, and so be it. And now you go, how can I interact with that in a way that actually feeds me and supports me, and set those parameters, those boundaries that allow it to be, I'm not getting on the phone going, oh man, I wonder how long this one will be. Because there's a certain level of that when we know it's like it crosses over, and then I want to hang up, but I don't want to hang up because that's rude, and we get in that quandary. So that's what I would play with, and I'm glad you're recognizing that it just could be like his personality. It's whatever it is. But again, you're new, you're learning, you're exploring, and so that's part of what boundaries do, and that's why I say it's an invitation. It actually lets them know more about you,
Yeah.
which then makes them go, oh, well, you know something about me, and it invites them to open up about them. And you'll be amazed at how much, when you're being proactive, now that there's a space of permission to have those conversations, because most of us have gone through our entire lives not speaking up about those things. And so we assume nobody does, or you shouldn't, or it's self-centered, or it's rude. It's like, no, it's a
Right.
gift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's
I just find that I get full with that. It's when he's spouting out all this facts and stuff and his experiences with different things that he was going on with different languages yesterday, which I don't understand.
Yeah.
And it's like he's kind of showing off in a way
Mhm.
to tell me what he can do. And I know he can do a lot because he is smart, but it's
Yep.
like, it's not on a personal level. And if I was on a more personal level, I think I could handle more.
Yeah.
This is just too intense at one time.
So that's a great observation. And what I would recommend around that is, if you notice that it's getting to that, like, it's just this high level of data,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you'd be like, that's really interesting. How does that apply to you?
Yeah. Yeah.
To invite him to,
Me?
no,
me?
to him, to
Oh.
find out, like, oh, why is this important?
Yeah. Why is this
Right?
important to you? Why, tell me why this lights you up, or you're really lit up about this. How did you get into this? Like, you have the opportunity to bring it back to that personal level.
Mhm.
And I think also, there's an opportunity there to connect and like bring the conversation back to that personal level in other ways, like offering, I know that you said that there wasn't a lot for you to connect with what he was offering you. So if if there, I forgot where, I'm not sure where I was going with that, sorry. But I guess my point is that there are opportunities to bring it back and connect with him on that personal level. Like Ken saying, like, how is this relevant to you? Or, how does this apply to your life? Tell me why this is important to you. Because ideally when he's, operating kind of up here, you want to, bring that connection back. And I think also that's another great opportunity for, you recognize your bucket has sprung a leak, and you can offer other ways of connecting, like physical touch his hand, and sometimes even that is communicative enough for him to, come back to the present moment, connect with you, and, shift the moment.
Well, that would be great. I haven't met him yet, but when I
Yeah.
meet, that's something I can handle. But when you're talking on the phone, it's like, I have asked him, like you said, how does it, what caused it, or what got you interested? And then he gets on another tangent, and it goes on and on and on.
So can I ask, Carol, do you feel like it becomes all about this generic stuff with him and that you're the one that's not getting seen and connected with?
Well, I don't connect with a lot of that stuff. He's a scientist and an inventor, so he's got all these, I mean, they're fascinating one at a time, not all of them at once.
Yeah. So again, one of the things that you can do is when you're saying, oh, well, how does that apply to you? Because honestly, I've never really been into languages. So I'm wondering
Well,
what that
I
does to
told
you.
him that, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm saying, so you can go, you know what? This is a whole new world for me, this science stuff. So I'm full today. Like, let's put a pause on this topic for now. Not
Okay.
forever. I'm not shutting you off. I just need some time to digest this. I don't have that ability like you do. You've been living in science your whole life, and I haven't.
You're right.
I'm interested, but I'm like, right now, I'm done.
Mhm.
And what you're doing is you're honoring what that is for him, but you're also saying, if I'm going to eat this meal, I got to eat it one bite at a time. And so we got to slow down with that. And when we say slow down, it seems like we're saying everything, but we're saying nothing, because you're saying slow down because of something that's obvious for you, that he has no idea what that means. He just means, oh, okay, so you want me to talk slower? Or what does slow down mean? Because there's an experience you're having that feels like you're steamrolled, like just
Right.
overwhelmed. Oh, well, this is just so much. And again, it's not a bad thing, right? You're not saying I can't keep up with you or anything like that, which is some of the stories we come up with. It's just, hey, that's where I'm at. This is me. And as me, that's what I need to be my best with you and with me. Because, if I get off a call and you've been going on about 27 different things, I'm wiped out.
I was yesterday. I was wiped out. Exactly.
Yeah.
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 So that's
And it
what you want
strips
to pay
away the-
attention to. Yeah.
Yeah. It strips away the feeling of connection too. You don't leave that call feeling like you've connected with the other person.
Yeah.
You leave the call as if you've come away from a lecture or something, rather than a heart to heart, or building a relationship.
Yeah. So that's great, Carol. I'm glad you're doing what you're doing, but just don't hesitate. And the thing you want to understand is that you say something to him once, again, because he doesn't have the visceral experience of how it's compromising you. He doesn't understand how much of a difference it makes. So
Okay.
it's not uncommon to need to say it multiple times and get more detailed about, no, you understand, this is this is how this impacts me. Because what we don't understand is that, especially if you're talking to men, this is a big thing with masculine and feminine, is the masculine is hardwired to be a provider. So if you use the word, this is what this provides for me, you got his attention.
Okay. Good.
Hey, this would provide, whatever, the space to be really present with you, or the time to do this, or whatever it is for you. And now he's like, oh, because here's the thing, this is the cool part about saying what it does provide. The inverse of that he automatically picks up is, so if I don't do this, it'll provide the opposite. I don't want that. I don't want her to feel overwhelmed and, unhappy with our calls. So, I got a double motivation to support her in this, right? To go, I had no idea. And I'll give you a personal example. So I was dating a woman years ago, and we lived actually fairly close to each other. And when we would, I'd go home from her place or something, and she'd be like, hey, text me when you get home. And I always thought it was I'm like, I only live a couple miles away. Do you really think I'm going to get in an accident or something? I didn't quite get it. And so I would sometimes, and I didn't other times, and I didn't think it was a big deal. And she would say it, and I'd be like, yeah, and if I didn't, she's like, oh, I know she didn't text. I'm like, yeah, I got home fine. I didn't think anything of it, because I didn't know why she wanted me to text. So one day she goes, hey, I noticed you didn't text the other day. I said, yeah, well, I got home, I kind of forgot about it. And then when I thought about it, it was late. I didn't want to bother you. And she goes, oh, I said, do you ask because you think I can't get home safely, or what? I don't understand. She goes, no, it helps me feel connected to you. I would have never guessed that. But as soon as she said that, I'm like, well, why would I not want her to be connected with me? Of course I want her to feel connected with me. I never missed another text again. Because now I understood what it provided for her.
Right.
That I couldn't have guessed in a million years. Because I'm like, well, I just saw you 2 minutes ago. How are we not connected?
Mm-hmm.
So again, this is why it seems so obvious, but it's not. And
Right.
the thing about obvious things that we think are obvious, there's only two outcomes and they're both good. So one is, oh, I stated something that I thought was obvious and they said, yeah, I already understood that. Cool, we just confirmed it. Or we let them know something that's obvious to us and they're like, I had no idea. Well, good, now we don't have to not know what we thought they already knew,
Yeah.
right? Both things are positive. So there's nothing wrong. It's just our culture is like, oh, well, you're wasting people's time if you're stating the obvious. Well, yeah, but it's obvious to us, not to them.
Right.
I have
Thank
a
you.
question.
Those are all great.
I have a question. Is
Yeah, Tova.
it okay to have a good reason why you need to get off the phone? For example, I might say to a friend, my dog is nudging me, she needs her dinner, or she needs to go out or whatever, which is real. And it will make me have to terminate the conversation if it's going too long. So is that a good mechanism that we could use to kind of get our needs met too? If we're on full, do we have to say, you know, I'm really reached full and I really want to get off the phone? Or could we just say, you know, my dog is nudging me. She's got a built-in clock and she tells me it's dinner time, or she needs to go out for a walk, or whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
are those
Yeah.
good ways to terminate a phone call or to make
Yeah.
our wishes known as a mechanism to?
Yep. No, I totally get that. And you're just making me think all the times people have said that about their dogs. And I'm like,
That's what was going on.
geez, I have
Well,
no
no,
idea.
I mean, it's real. It's
No,
not.
no, I understand that, but
Of
it's a
course.
convenient interruption that you're like, good,
Right.
because I wanted to
It's
get off the
gotta
phone
happen
anyhow.
because my dog's old. She's 14.
Yeah.
And she needs to go out. I
Yeah.
need to attend to her, and I
Yeah,
can't.
but it's also a convenient, like, you're like, oh, good, because I actually wanted to get off the phone anyhow, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah,
but
so here's
I'm-
the thing, Tova, and this is a great question, because I'm sure all of us have done it. You know, there's something that we justify why we didn't really say what we needed. We let it be circumstantial. Oh, well, I got to get off, but I really want to end this call anyhow. What you want to look at is, why wouldn't you have just said what you needed?
Yeah.
Why did you have to wait for the dog to nudge you to make it okay? Because it's
Why do
always
you
okay
need-
to have your own needs and go, hey, I'm full.
Right.
Or,
Why do you need a reason to communicate to get off the phone?
yeah.
Does-
And either way works, but then we're waiting for something to happen to justify it, or we're making it up if it's not real, because that gets us off the phone. So you just want to look at, well, why didn't I just tell them when I felt like I wanted to end the call? And there's not a good or bad to it. It's just to notice, where am I not letting myself, letting it be okay? Because that's another form of self-care, right? I'm full, I can't keep going. It's going to start to drain me.
Mhm.
Why is it not okay to speak to that? Hey, I notice I'm losing my attention for all this. And, you know, it's fun talking to you, but I'm kind of done being on the phone today, or whatever it is. Let's talk another time. Thanks for calling. Whatever it is, instead of waiting for it to be circumstantial. So there's
Right.
not a bad thing to it. It's just, again, why can't you just speak it on your own?
Right.
There's not a
It's
right
a-
or wrong. It's just a choice.
Yeah. I was just going to add that your dog needing to go out. Yes, I mean your pup needs to go out on specific times, but it's still a moving target. You know, it's not it's not always going to align with the time that you're ready to turn in and move on with your
Sure.
evening. And you know, and I think that Ken has given you some really great examples of you know, how to make that transition. And I think that the piece that we get concerned about is, again, like their experience, protecting their experience, not wanting to disappoint the other person, or you know, have it mean something that you're ready to end the conversation, when in truth it's just time. You know, you're full, you're tired, you're ready to move on, you know, you want to watch some Netflix or whatever it is. But in that, again, it's you know, it doesn't even matter the reason or the excuse, because you don't even need a reason or excuse other than that internal feeling, you know, of I'm complete, I feel good, I'm ready to move on.
See, I think what Carol expressed would be a deal breaker for me. I don't want to feel like this person is running on and on and on, and I'm not connecting with that person. That would be really a serious issue with the relationship. It's
Yeah.
not going to go very far, I don't think. I don't know, maybe I'm being overcritical, but
Well, everybody's got their own needs, right? So
Right.
what does serve you? Some people are like, oh yeah. So it just occurred to me the other day, a guy, he's somebody I know, we're not super close friends, but we met through some business stuff several years ago. And he called, and I didn't know this. I mean, like I said, we met casually at this event. We weren't like, best friends, spent a lot of time together. This man can talk, and he's going on and on and on. I'm just like, wow. And so I was realizing, like, I really don't want to just sit here and be on the phone. We don't have that close a connection. And so I was like, is there something I can still be doing where I'm feeling like so I went on a walk, which I was going to do anyhow. I'm like, oh, well, I'll just put on, my headphones and go for a walk and whatever. But I did exactly, this is what I'm calling myself out, Tova. So he was driving. I found out he was driving on a road trip. So one, I found out he was trying to fill time while he was driving, right? He was bored. He's like, oh, this is fun to be talking. But he was going into an area, and I knew the area, and I knew that he was going to lose the signal. So as soon as there was a dropout, I'm like, oh, looks like we've lost our signal. I guess that's the end of our call. And the whole time he's like, well, I could hear you. So he calls right back. And I'm like, oh, well, I couldn't hear you. And I'm like, can I just tell him like I'm done? But I knew he was going to run out of the signal very, very soon, right? So much like you knew your dog was going to want to nudge you to go out the door. So I hung on to this call until we actually did lose it. And the funny part is, so then I just sent him a text and I said, hey, obviously we're supposed to be done with this call and I want you to drive safe and whatever. And so he calls, he leaves a voicemail, and then he texts me to say he left a voicemail. And I was like, yeah, this guy's not understanding at all. But I didn't know my boundary, right? I was making it circumstantial. So I hadn't actually told him what my boundary was, that I'm full. And the thing was, it was the evening time and I'd finished work when we got on the phone, and I was going to go make some dinner. And then I was like, well, I'm just going to go for this walk. And then it kept going. And I'm like, I'm getting hungry. Like, I need to eat. And I'm really going to get cranky if I get, super hungry and you won't shut up. And it was hilarious, but it's exactly that, right? I was waiting for the circumstance instead of actually honoring what I needed to be my best with him. And it was funny because I'm walking around, because we had made plans that in the next couple of weeks we were going to get together. And I was sitting there going, do I want to do that? Like, this dude is draining. Do I actually want to get together? I don't owe him anything. He's an acquaintance. We just happen to be in the same area. And that's the question, right? Are we doing it out of obligation?
Right.
Are we doing it out of actually it serves both of us, which the only one we can know about is it serves us. That's the only part we can measure. Well, they want to keep talking. We don't know that. They could just be off on a tirade and they don't even realize they're still talking. They've lost track of time, whatever. So we manage our side of the street. And again, I'm owning the fact that I didn't at all with this guy, but it was so funny because I was like, oh, yeah, that's not, and I danced around it. I totally danced around it. It's so funny. I'm thinking about this. So I'm on this walk, and at one point we did actually have to talk about, if we were getting together. I'm like, oh, well, you're starting to lose the signal. Maybe we should make those plans. That's why we got on the phone in the first place. He had said, oh, well, let's make plans on the phone. It'll be easier. And you know what he said? Oh, well, what kind of plans do you want to make? I'm like, that was the premise of your entire call, was to make plans. Truth was, it was to have somebody to talk to while he's driving across the country.
Oh, gosh.
But I didn't know that. So this is what his message was. This is what was so funny. This is how I know it's actual factual. His message was, hey, it was great talking to you. By the way, I'm driving 6 hours tomorrow and 6 hours on the next day. And so if you're not busy and you want to talk, I'm like, dude, I have a life. Like, I know you're sitting in the car and there's nothing going on, but sorry. And I was like, see, I knew it. He just was looking for entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
And he talked 90% of the time. So it's really funny. But that's the thing. We tend to do that. And in that case, I didn't own what I needed to be my best. I was not doing self-care. I wasn't doing self-love. I was letting that hole in my bucket keep draining. Yeah. And it overran, right? So I get off the phone finally, and I see he's calling back. I'm like, no, I'm not picking that up. And then he leaves his message. And the whole time I'm like, now I'm starving. Now now I'm going to eat really late, and all these different things that I was attributing to him, but they were really attributable to me.
Right.
Because I didn't set the boundaries.
Right.
That's the question you have to ask, Tova, is if I don't mind waiting that long and the dog's going to come up here sooner or later, okay, Or you can go, you know what? I have no reason to keep letting my bucket have that hole in it for now. I can stop that now. The dog's still going to need to go out eventually. That's fine. That's got nothing to do with when this call ends. And that's the choice. Again, it's up to you. It's totally up to you. There's not a good or bad. It's just, does it serve you as being your best?
Right.
Yeah.
Am I staying on this call for me,
Yes.
or am I staying on this call for the other person?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
There is something to be said for being a good listener too, though. And so the question becomes, how good are you at being a listener? Are you?
Yeah, but if your bucket starts to
Sure.
drain, right, you're not being as present. So if your brain is starting to go, oh, I'd really like to get off this call,
I'm tired.
you just stopped being a good listener.
Yeah.
So you're now
And there's
listening
nothing
for
wrong
ways
with
not
that.
to be listening. How can I
Yeah.
finish this call? How can I find an opening to get off the call? So that's your indicator that says, I'm actually not being a good listener. And that's a good enough reason right there to go, hey, you know what? I really want to be able to listen to you and take this in. And I realize I'm losing that focus. And I don't want to do that to you or to me. So why don't we wrap this up and have a call, another time?
Yeah.
Because that's what you're saying. And that's what I mean by being your best. Yeah. If your role is being the listener, well, are you being able to be the best listener? Are you going, doop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doo, I'm going to make a laundry list and we're going to do all this stuff because I'm not really listening at all because
Right.
I
Yeah.
can't hear it even if I wanted to.
And that's something that comes up in my relationship often. Like if my husband and I are connecting in the evening, and if I start telling him about my day or like getting into a lot of detail, I mean, and he's reached max capacity, I mean, we'll have that moment in the conversation where he'll say, I need a high level, or can we reconnect on this a little bit later? I need, and he'll express his need. He'll express the fact that like he can't take in a lot of detail in that moment. And it does create that connection. It allows me to know more about him, as Ken was saying, and it allows us to connect on a level that is available to both of us in that moment, so that we can be good listeners for each other.
Yeah.
And I love what you were saying, Ken, earlier about boundaries creating connection. I mean, it's so true. It's giving more of ourselves and sharing our truth. And ideally, we're in a relationship, whether that be a romantic partnership or a friendship or a family relationship. It doesn't even matter. But ideally, the other person is able to hear that and not take it personally. That's a whole other ice cream chat that we might explore in the future. But yeah, taking care of our own side of the street and communicating our truth, even if it's, I don't know, what I like to call it, the butt pucker zone, where it's like it's uncomfortable to say I'm at capacity and I can't be a good listener right now, but still it's my truth. And it's more uncomfortable for me to pretend that I can be a good listener and take in all this detail than to just say like my brain is mush. This is a conversation that happens very frequently in this house, especially in the evening, where it's like, my brain is Swiss cheese and I just, want to hold you, or let's go watch some TV. Let's go eat some ice cream.
That's a great idea. I love that idea. So ladies, we've reached the top of the hour and this has been fantastic. Great
Fun.
questions, great conversation. And if you want to recycle this, we're going to send out a link to the replay so you can cycle it. Or if you've got friends that you're like, oh, they could benefit from this, by all means, feel free to share. And there's a couple little special extra things that we're going to have on there for you as well. We're not sure where this is going to go, the ice cream chats. We know there's probably going to be more, but we don't know what it's going to look like, but we'll certainly keep you posted. And by all means, thank you for being here. It's been a pleasure. And we love your participation and all your comments. And if there's something that you feel like there was a gap and you wanted to wrap something up, obviously you have our contact information and feel free to reach out. But thank you for being here, Bex.
Yeah, thank you.
you.
Thank you for sharing ice cream with us. It's been such a treat. And thank you for the conversation and contributing your own experiences so that we could support you and see you and just enjoy your company.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you. Have a great weekend and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
Ken.
Bye.
Thank you, Bex.